Hello, welcome back. You're watching Techie, and today we have another full case study with Power Query. Last time I posted a case study and you guys seemed to like that, so today we'll be doing something different, which is to do a live example from start to finish without cuts. So you'll see all of the mistakes as I make them in real time, but you should see in reality how long it should realistically take to complete a project like this. So the project we have today is another data parsing automation job, and somebody will be requesting a file to be formatted in a certain way and then combine it with a different file. So let's take a look at the actual ask from the example that was posted. So first things first, we'll look at the actual file. So the first file that the client wants us to manipulate contains a list of names as well as the unique identifiers for this person. And what they want to do, as you can see, this is the raw data. We get instructions on what we want to do with this. So in the second tab, they let us know that using the roster, sub, and line information columns, they create a unique identifier for these people. So you combine the first three columns, concatenate them together, and you get the unique identifier for them. Typically, they usually write a concatenate for this. And then if you look at the names column, what they do is they remove the middle name and they take the last and first name columns only. So when the file comes in, the column for name is one column. You need to separate it out into 3 different columns. And then finally, if you look at the final scrubbed roster, it looks like this. Student ID, which is unique field, and you separate out the names, and then they add this manually, but that's not part of the exercise. And then they get a second file, a follow-up file that they get 2 weeks later. So basically, this is a updated list. It contains additional information such as aims class and the game unit name, which contains well, what they want to pull information out of is to convert the second letter into a word. So A becomes alpha, B for Bravo, Charlie, Delta, etc. So depending on what this letter is, they would like to use this as a reference and assign a company name to each individual. And because we separated out the names, it gets a little bit complicated for these guys because they don't have something to tie it back to. So we'll see how we can use Power Query to automate all of this. I think this case study is really powerful because it incorporates all of the different techniques I've covered in my past videos. It should be a very interesting exercise to incorporate all of the different techniques we've learned about thus far. And if you look at the final roster, it looks like this. So you extracted the first and last names, and you're going to convert the company letter into company name, as well as concatenate the student ID. So this is what the final roster looks like. So what we're going to do, I'll just type out what I plan to do, is 1, scrub the first file, set it up. 2, I will scrub the second file and extract any relevant information, and then merge these two files. And finally, this is what it should look like. So I did some preliminary work to begin with. So basically, I've created 2 files as files that you would normally import yourself. So this is the first file, what I call roster. So again, this is basically what they gave us to begin with. Double roster. This is what I used to create this Excel sheet. Next up, I also created one for the follow-up file. Once again, simply taking what they gave us and creating a separate file so we can use these files as reference documents. Okay, so here we have what we have. Okay, so to get started. So we're going to get this data from the folder. Again, we're setting up because there are two files that we need to reference, the first one being the roster, and then the second file that comes in as the follow-up. So I'm going to reference the folder here. And the first file we pull in will be this one. Okay, so we have our roster, right? Now, what do we have here? So we have, as you can see, there's a lot of additional columns that we don't need. In particular, the first few rows are very unnecessary for what we need to do. So what I'm going to do is remove these, remove columns, no, remove rows. Remove top rows. So how many rows do we need to get rid of? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so I'm going to get rid of the first 7 rows. So now it looks a little bit more coherent. And because we know these are the column names, we can use first row as headers. So now roster, sub, blah, 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 etc. now looks correct. We have all this information, right? And now we're going to do, what we're going to do is, actually, let me do that again. Because this is not where I want to make the changes. And this is very important because when you do this manipulation, it's important to do it in the original file because this is the combined location of the query. So you want to do your manipulation here instead. And then again, because this assumes that we have headers, I'm going to remove that step and we're going to redo what we just did before. So like I said before, when you're doing this, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to see what I'm doing in real time. So again, I'm going to remove the first 7 rows because those are junk rows. But as you can see here, let's see what happened here. I did not use the right one. Okay, I used kept rows instead of remove rows. So lots of mistakes. In fact, we need to remove 8 rows in order to get to what we want. Okay, now we're good. Use first row as headers. So again, we're back to where we started, right? We're doing the transform on here, which is the reference to the original folder and the original file. Now, the cool thing about this is that once you do the transformation here, your final query already takes all of those changes. So that's why it's important to do your transformation here rather than here, because this is where everything happens at the last step. It's important to do it here. So that's why I made that mistake and showed you why it's important to do it here. Now we're going to keep all of the rows, the columns that are relevant. So what were relevant and what we're interested in seeing and working on are roster, sub, line info, name, what else? All those other fields were not necessary, right? Yeah, none of these we need to do anything on. So we're just simply going to choose columns and choose columns. We're going to keep all of these, click OK, and there we have it. We removed everything else that we don't need because we don't want to confuse ourselves with extra columns that we don't care about. Next, we're going to do the concatenation. So what they called this was unique ID, right? And this consisted of concatenating all 3 of these. So if you just did that, what will it look like? Okay, so we have a bunch of errors. That's to be expected because you cannot concatenate numbers with text. So what do we do to fix this problem? Well, you just simply change all of these to text. So we go back one step and we're going to change all of these to text. Change the text. In fact, that's probably way slower than it needs to be. So roster, text, sub, change that to text. Change line number to text as well. Text, text, text. Okay, so now that we fixed that, there we go. So as you can see, once I fixed the text problem, the unique ID now looks like this. But of course, we want it to have hyphen separators. So because we didn't specify having those, it looks like this. Okay, there we go. So now we have our unique IDs that look like this. But as you can see, these unique IDs are no good. Why? Because if you look at the leading zeros, they're not there, right? 0, 5. These look like to be 3 digits, but the leading zeros are missing. What do we know about this? Well, we learned about the concept of padding the numbers with the leading 0 if they are missing. And you can check out my older video to learn about that. Okay, so how do we do that? So Text.PadStart is the formula in order to fix this. So Text.PadStart, that is the text, count as the number, and count as the number. Because sub is 2. And then finally you insert the character that you want to insert it with. I think it's 0. Error again. Cannot convert 0. Okay. Is that right? There we go. Okay. So as you can see, because we did not have padding the formula before, 5 was just 5. But because we added the text.pad.start, we now have 0, 5. So again, we're going to do the same thing for line number, because again, line number should be three characters with a leading 0 if there is a leading 0. So we're simply going to do the same thing. Pad start line number, comma. We're going to have 3 character length this time, and we're going to pad it with 0 once again. All right. Oh man. So there we go. Now unique ID is complete. You have padding zeros, leading zeros when they are missing, and this is the unique ID. All right, we're off to a great start. Now we want to extract the name column into first and last names. So as I saw in the original file, well, let's take a look again. It's been a while. I don't quite remember. So the name column, Jones, Michael, John. Jones is the last name. First name is Michael. So they don't care about this value. They only care about this and this. Michelle, Renee. Renee is the middle name. They don't care. All right. So it looks like for some reason it's always last and first name. Last and first name. Okay. So how do we deal with that? All right, let's go back to our editor and try to come up with a solution. So when we go back to this roster transform, we're gonna add a new column. So we want the last name, right? And we're going to manipulate the name column. And simply, if you do nothing, it will just bring in the name. But what we want to do is get the text. We want to get the first name. The first name is basically the last name. That's what they told us. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that formula for Text.BeforeDelimiter. Text.BeforeDelimiter. And this is another concept we learned in one of my prior videos. So what you want to do is Text.BeforeDelimiter and delimiter as the text. Well, the delimiter is space, right? That's the separator you want to look at. So what do we have? Again, forgot parentheses. There we go. Okay, last name. So what text.BeforeDelimiter is, whatever you define as your delimiter, it's going to look at the first instance of that and get you the text that's before that delimiter, which is the space. So as you can see, we successfully extracted the last name. Here we go again. We're gonna look at how we get the first name. All right, so first name, let me think. So if you have name and we want to get the second instance of that, would you use Text.AfterDelimiter? That wouldn't make sense. I'll show you why. Text.AfterDelimiter. If you use this, you're gonna get everything after the space, and you're gonna get a lot more than what you actually need. So if you do that, you're gonna get Michael, Andrew, Michelle, Romero, which is what you want, but you don't want a John, Michael, Renee, and Jacqueline. So how do we solve for that? Well, to be honest, this is a dumb method of solving it, but we're going to do this in two parts because we want to get the name, the first name, and then we're to cut out the rest of this. Okay, I'm gonna name this first name 2 because I don't want to intend to keep this column anyway. So I'm gonna use first name, but we're gonna call this true first name because we're going to use the text.BeforeDelimiter again. Text.BeforeDelimiter for this guy, because this is that name. See, now we can extract first name based off of the reference here. So I don't need this, but all we need is this, right? Does that make sense? You have the last name, which you got from extracting out of here. You create this additional supplemental helper column to help you extract the first and middle name. But then really, we just want the first name. So by using the secondary formula, we're able to cut out all the extra middle names and we just are left with the first name. So I think we're ready to work on the next spreadsheet. And let me just get rid of that extra column that we don't need, and do a little bit of cleanup. Remove this guy, we don't need him. And we have this stuff, we have that. And let's just make things a little bit more coherent because sometimes when you're adding this stuff, it gets a little bit hard to read. So by renaming your columns and steps, you'll know which each step does. Unique ID. So you added unique ID here. This one was for last name. This one was a helper first name. And this is your true first name column. Here we go. All right, so you hit refresh and now you have that. The second thing we want to do is bring in the second file. So insert, data, get data from folder. So the second file, I put it into the follow-up folder where there's a file already, which is what we saw in the beginning. So now we're going to work on the second file. And we're basically doing the same thing twice, but I'm going to show you the importance of this stuff. Labeling your work is extremely helpful for when you're debugging and doing all types of review later on. All right, so again, we're gonna remove the rows that we don't need. 1, 2, 3, 4 this time. All right, 4 rows. Nope, it's 5. Can't count. All right, remove, promote, that row as a column header. We have name, and we have a bunch of other stuff. Again, this time, what do we have? What did we need to extract? We needed to get this. Okay. So from what I've saw, we just simply need to have the name, maybe this, and then we just need the gaining unit name. So this is our second. So we have, this is our second spreadsheet. So we have the name, we have the gaining unit, and we have, I don't think I need this either, but whatever. Okay, so what they asked us to do is take this and extract the company name, Alpha, Delta, Bravo, whatever. And for this, we need to extract the letter only and then do a lookup. But we don't have a lookup. How do I create a lookup? Well, simply we're going to create a lookup table ourselves. And we can do that by going to the Enter Data button. So Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and we have Delta, what is it, Echo and Foxtrot, and we have A, B, C, D, E, F. All right, and we can add more in the future if we wanted to, but let's call this roster, no, this is company name. Let's give it a name of the table. All right, here we go. So this essentially will be our lookup for the name of the company. And then we go back to transform and we want to extract, once again, A, D, B, whatever it is here. So how do we do that? We do split by delimiter. And I believe I showed that before. Transform, split column by position. So we want to split this to give us this in particular. And how do we do that? Positioning. 0, 1, 2, 3. Is it 4, 5? Here we go. So by doing that, you split the column into separate columns by splitting it down the position. So if you split this by 3 and 4 and 5, we're gonna cut away what we basically need. There's another way to do this, which is, I believe, Text.Middle. And let's go back. So another method we can do is invoke a custom column, which is, I believe, taking, let's see, company text.middle. All right, so where is the positioning of the letter, right? It is position 3. All right, same thing. So basically, you can utilize that one or you can utilize this one. Both methods work in achieving the same thing. You basically get this letter out of this column. But because I like this better, I'm going to use this. So text.middle basically tells the formula to look for the positioning where you should split and get the text. And then 1 is basically defining how long of a text you want to grab from that position. And because it's only one letter, you only want 1 character out of that extraction. Okay, now that we have this, we do a merge. So basically a merge is, once again, what I showed you guys before. A merge is basically a lookup. And we're going to merge company into the lookup we just created in the, what was it? Company name. So because we have this, this is essentially a VLOOKUP, and you do a left outer join, and you click OK. After you're done, you simply expand And now you've brought in, wait, I don't need that. So let's do that again. When you expand, you only bring in the stuff that you need. So I'm going to just bring in this one, which is alpha. Alpha, my roster did not have column header names. I'd rather call this, so again, in future, it'll be easier to reference, but basically this is the company name, and this is the letter. And it didn't make sense when I was doing this because I was like, well, what am I bringing in exactly? Let's do that again, right? And because it changed the names, it actually broke the query, so let's do that again. Merge queries, merge this one with company name. And remember, you have to select the correct columns to merge because they are essentially your unique values. That's a key identifier between two tables. And again, you join them together, you expand, bring in. See, now it makes more sense. Bringing in the company name rather than the letter because you already have the letter. You don't need that. All right, so now we know from the second file, Jones, Michael, John is from alpha, this guy's from alpha, this guy's from delta, etc. because we did all this data manipulation. And now, finally, we want to create the final file. So the final file, we can utilize this one. So again, this is the final file, which is based off of the first file. All right, and what we did was, we did a bunch of manipulation. We brought in the unique ID. We separated out the first and last names. But the problem is now we don't have the company name. So what do? Well, we know that there is one unique identifier that is the same for both tables. And that would be the name. Because the names are the original names. They contain the first, middle, and last names without any manipulation. So what we're going to do is simply merge these two together. So I'm using this column, merging it into the follow-up transform file, where it contains the company name. Does that make sense? So we're going to merge name with name because these two are unique identifiers for these two tables. We're going to tie them together using a merge, and we're going to bring in the company name. All right, so click OK. So once again, when you expand, we're simply going to bring in the company name. And there we go. So now our final roster, I'll just call this final roster. The final roster consists of, well, do we really need this anymore? We don't. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of, and then this will, well, rename this. So there we have it. We have all of this stuff. Heck, we don't even need this. Do we? No. Get rid of that too. Remove. Close and load. Okay, so what the client asked for in the final, what did they ask for in the final roster? Complete. Last name, first name, battalion, company name, and student ID. Okay, they called it student ID, and this is a company. Okay. So we can fix that, no problem. No problem. Simply go to the roster. We call it company. I called it company name. That's not right. I called it unique ID. They called it what? Student ID. That's fine. It's totally fine. And they wanted last name to come first, then first name, then student ID, then company, right? No. Company, then student ID. Customer is always right. Hit the refresh. Should be good. So again, looking at the final roster, student ID, company, battalion. What is battalion? They told us battalion is, they add battalions manually. So this is something that we obviously can't automate because we don't know where battalion comes from. But if that was something that we can automate, we can also definitely do that. But just to make life easier, we'll just create a new column called battalion. So they don't have to create the battalion every time. Battalion. All right, there we go. So in the future, they can write in that manually because that's what they told us. All right, and that's it. So that is the end of the tutorial. But I wanted to test the integrity of my model. So I created some test files, and I'm gonna bring in follow-up 2. Toss it in here. I have roster 1 is roster 2. All right, so I'm gonna remove. Hopefully that'll work. No, it won't because I have these opened. Gotta close out of them. But let me showcase what will happen with my test files. I created these files just to showcase how easily it is to, again, refresh the data and get you an updated model, right? Hit the refresh button. There we go. Done. So essentially I created another roster. This is the file I created as a test file. So I could put all these fake names and numbers just to play around with this stuff. And as you can see, I have the names, company, student IDs, they all are refreshed with whatever it's supposed to be. So there we have it. That's how this stuff works. And to make it even better, right, you don't even need to remove the files. You can leave all of the files in and they will still work. Hopefully. When you hit refresh, see, aha, something went wrong here. So the idea is that you want to be able to support multiple files, but for some reason, the company was not brought in when you have 2 files in there. Okay, I think I know why. So the follow-up file contains, the company names, whereas the final roster is missing it for the additional names, whereas it's available for that one. And that's because when we do the transform here, no, that doesn't make sense. Follow-up transform. Okay, I think I understand why. Company name, follow-up, that. Okay, so when we did the merge for the company here, where did we did that? This is why it's important to label your steps appropriately. Aha. Okay, so when we did the merge to bring in the company name here, I'll show you. I brought it in from follow-up transform, right? But where I should have really did the lookup was in the follow-up table. If we do that, we will bring in the company name correctly. There we go. Close and load. Okay. There we go. So that's how you debug some of the problems you have. And just to explain why that works the way it does, it's because when we're doing the lookup here, it's because this file only looks at one file. But when you look at the file here, this will combine all of the available files in the folder. So when you're doing the lookup, it's definitely better. It's the solution. The correct solution is to look up the files in the combined file. So that's why your final roster did not work when you merged with the wrong table. So hopefully this was a good tutorial. Explains how you can automate this stuff using Power Query and make it sustainable so you can put multiple files in there and make it still work just the same. It's very important to use these best practices because you can make a mistake easily. So it's definitely very important to double check your work by creating test files and fake files and testing the integrity of your automated solution. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It wasn't too long, and let me know what you think. I think I have received some good feedback in the past comments, so I look forward to your comments, and I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned something. All right, take care, folks, and I'll see you next time.